Hey there, it's Tuesday afternoon and I thought I would make a quick video on varnishing tips. Matthias Wendell made a video yesterday talking about some of his, or actually demonstrating some of his, and they're all good. But I've got some that I would like to share. I actually shared one in the comments there, and that was about not cleaning the paintbrush that you're using for oil-based polyurethane, but put it in the freezer instead, if you're allowed to do that. Because, you know, some men are not allowed to do that kind of thing. And that's a good one because you avoid using all that paint thinner. I don't use, for the most part, I don't use oil-based polyurethane anymore. So it's not really an issue anymore. I don't like, currently I don't have any brushes in my freezer. This one that I have right here is for water-based polyurethane. Same procedure, but you don't put it in the freezer. You can just put it in the fridge. And it's like, it doesn't have a heavy odor like oil-based polyurethane does. See, the thing about oil-based polyurethane wrapped in a bag and put it in the freezer is that it's so cold in there, it kind of neutralizes the smell. It really doesn't off-gas that much and get into your steaks or your TV dinners or whatever you happen to have in there. But if you put it in the fridge, it'll still keep in the fridge. It will stink up everything that's in the fridge. So I don't have that problem because I don't use that stuff anymore, unless I am doing one of two things. The first is wiping it on, as in mixing it with paint thinner and a little bit of some other kind of oil, like boiled linseed oil, to make Danish oil. That's a finish that's good. Or I'm spraying it. Let me talk about varnish for a second here, because that's a term that's used often, and it's an older term, and it means basically any kind of a film finish that you brush on and you let dry, or you let it cure. Because that's what happens with polyurethane. It doesn't dry so much as it cures. And then you got other ones as well. Okay, there's, let's say lacquer. Lacquer's a different thing altogether. A lot of people use these words kind of interchangeably. Like when they're using something like polyurethane, they're saying they're lacquering a project, which is incorrect. If they say they're varnishing a project, that is correct though, because that's still varnish, even though it's polyurethane. So whenever I'm brushing something on other than stain or some other product like that, like paint, I am using water-based polyurethane, and I keep the brush, I don't clean the brush after. You can, of course, with water, right? That's another big difference. And water-based polyurethane is, like, it has a little bit less durability than the oil-based stuff, but it has so many other advantages that put it above and beyond that it's simply kind of ridiculous to use oil-based polyurethane these days, unless you have a specific look that you're going for. A really glossy look that has a lot of amber in it, because that's something else that oil-based polyurethane does that water-based doesn't do. It makes the wood more yellow, more amber, and that only increases over time. So if you're looking for that kind of look, then that's what you would go for. But I've got my brush here. I have this in the fridge, and it's good for a very long time. I think last time I used this brush was when I did my small toolbox. I can't recall anything I've done since then, brushed on water-based polyurethane. So it's actually months ago, and it's good. You just take it out of the fridge, you let it warm up, and it's just exactly the same as when you last used it. Another thing, if you're going to brush, I recommend getting this type of brush here with the angled on it. This is the only kind of brush I ever buy. And I generally only buy one size, and that's 2.5. I find that really good for everything that I do. I mean, you see a lot of people, they'll buy these little tiny brushes to do little tiny things, which is okay if you're making like models and stuff like that. But if you've got say, a small project to paint, you don't want to be doing it with a very small brush. It doesn't hold enough, it doesn't hold enough of the material to spread it out quickly and evenly. Okay, a 2.5-inch brush, you hold it like that, by the way, too. Right? A 2.5-inch brush will hold enough stuff so that you can get it spread out nice and even, so you don't have dry strokes all over the place. The other thing is, like this brush here, I bought a box of these, and what I bought these for was for just wiping things off, because you see this brush is really cheap, plastic bristles here, right? 2-inch crap. Don't buy these and thinking you're going to paint with them. Spend 10, 15, 20 bucks on a brush, and then, take care of it. You don't have to clean it religiously. You see guys that are babying the thing, they're only getting the paint up so high on the brush. It's like they've got a line marked there for them not to go above that with. No, don't do any of that. Get it soaked with the paint, or the finish, whatever you're using, and just, take care of it. You don't have to baby it. I should say one other thing before I move on to finish quality, and that's that I use a real paintbrush for the water-based polyurethane, even though the manufacturer, I think still to this day, recommends using those junk foam paintbrushes rather than using a real paintbrush. And it kind of drives me crazy when I'm watching a video and somebody's using that stuff and they're using one of those junk foam paintbrushes. And the only thing I can think of from the manufacturer's perspective is that when it was coming out, maybe to make it a selling point, because I remember when this stuff was first coming out, right? It was the early 80s, okay? And I used it for the first time way back then. They were using it, maybe the foam brush is a selling point, saying, okay, you don't have to use a good paintbrush or a real paintbrush with this stuff. You can use one of these really crappy foam paintbrushes and get good results. Well, if you want truly good results, get a good paintbrush. So finish quality is the last thing I want to talk about. And as far as varnish goes, because there are other options for other film finishes like shellac, has a French polish type procedure. But for varnish, there are only two good options for a fine finish, and that's the first is to do the wipe on and wipe off, build the film in several coats over several days. And you can do that with oil-based product, or you can do it with water-based as well. And then the advantage or the benefit of the water-based stuff is that it dries a lot quicker and you get it done a lot quicker. So you can burn through 4 or 5 coats in a run of a day, actually. The other option, the best option overall, if you're serious about making your own furniture and stuff, is to learn how to spray. And that involves having a compressor and a reasonably good paint sprayer gun. Okay, now you can get touch-up guns. I have one, small one. I've used it several times in the past with other projects. And I typically use that for the oil-based stuff when I'm going to spray that. And then I have a bigger one that I use with the water-based stuff. I use it for paint, water-based paint, and water-based polyurethane. And it really gives the best finish in the fastest time imaginable. It's, okay, brush. I'll give you a good example. This morning, before lunch, way before lunch actually, I got 4 coats of sprayed on paint on those 2 things down there. And had time in between coats to lightly sand them and then spray them again, give it time. This is all out back on a day when it's not overly warm. It's sunny out. It was warmish, but it wasn't, super hot or anything. Got it all done way before lunch, got everything cleaned up way before lunch. So there's no way, because I've painted lots of stuff like that, there's no way I could have that much done And okay, not only did I have it all done before lunch, but I had all that time in between waiting for it to dry, right? So I was doing other stuff. Learn how to spray. You'll get the best possible. Okay, learn how to spray if it's feasible for you, because some people simply don't have a backyard to put it in. And then that's the other thing about the oil-based versus water-based. I don't have a concern about going out and spraying water-based stuff in my backyard, whereas oil-based, you don't want that all over the place. I mean, you know, there's enough pollution being produced as it is without you adding to it by spraying that stuff when you really don't need to. You got good water-based stuff these days that works great.
What did they use, an X?
It's blood force. See the way the head's caved in?
You guys check out the new Hottie McCodass in Dispatch yet?
She's a butterface.
What's a butterface?
You know, compay, she's got a hot body, but a face